Good evening and welcome to the public meeting of the Halton District School Board for Wednesday, November the 7th, 2018. And I'd like to wish Happy Diwali to all those celebrating this week. At this moment, I'd also like to remind everyone that this meeting is video voice recorded and live streamed from the hdsb.ca website. And I would also like to ask that you turn any devices to silent mode. This evening, we have two trustees that are unable to join us, and that is Trustee Reynolds and Vice Chair Al Harrison. This evening, we have Trustee Pappen filling in for Vice Chair Al Harrison while she's away. We also have a superintendent that is unavailable to be with us tonight, and that is Superintendent Truffin. And before we take a moment to honor the land, I'd like to recognize that it is Treaty Week this week. And at board meetings, other meetings, and events, we take a moment to acknowledge the land. And a territorial or land acknowledgement is an act of reconciliation that involves making a statement recognizing the traditional territory of the Indigenous people who called the land home before the arrival of settlers, and in many cases still do call it home. It is a tradition that dates back centuries for Indigenous people, and today it marks a small but essential step towards reconciliation. This evening, Trustee Harvey Hope will be honoring the land.
Thank you, and I'm going to make one change as announced by the First Nation to their name. Halton, as we know it today, is rich in history and modern traditions of many First Nations and the Métis, from the Anishinaabe to the Attawaddaron, the Haudenosaunee, and the Métis. These lands surrounding the Great Lakes are steeped in Indigenous history. As we gather today on these treaty lands, we have the responsibility to honor and respect the four directions: land, waters, plants, animals, ancestors that walk before us, and all the wonderful elements of creation that exist. We would like to acknowledge and thank the Mississaugas of the Credit First Nation for sharing their traditional territory with us.
Thank you, Trustee Harvey Hope. Are there any declarations of possible conflict of interest? Seeing none. Next, we are up to the agenda. Could I have a motion to approve the agenda? Trustee Amos, seconded by Trustee Collard. Is there any discussion on the agenda this evening? Seeing no one on the speakers list. All those in favor? And that passes unanimously. Thank you very much. Okay, we are at my most favorite time. It's the Inspire Awards. Everyone in the Halton District School Board community can nominate or be nominated families, neighbors, related organizations, staff, students, and school volunteers. The Inspire Award is given to an individual or group that is formally or informally associated with the Halton District School Board who support our students and their achievements through exemplary caring, initiative, innovation, and creativity. Award recipients choose where they'd like to receive their award, and this evening we have 5 presentations at the board. Okay. Okay, first I'd like to call up Trustee Collard and James Templeton. Jim is a teacher at Robert Bateman High School who has been instrumental in getting the school's garden project up and running. This initiative has engaged many students in the planning, construction, and development of this project. Jim's dedication to the garden project has enabled the program to expand and connect with local organizations in the community. The garden project will be used as a source for project-based learning for students to learn how they can expand the garden, make it fully accessible, more inclusive, and better meet the needs of the local food banks. Students and staff are grateful for Jim's vision, organization, and leadership throughout this project to make it possible. Congratulations. Please feel free to come forward to take pictures. Next, I'd like to call up two teachers, Pamela Shepard and Alicia Linds. So I have two sections to read out here. So I'll start with Pamela. Pamela is a kindergarten teacher at Mohawk Gardens Public School who has set the tone for a happy, calm, and kind learning environment for students. She has successfully incorporated play-based learning into the classroom and engaged both students and parents in this type of learning. Parents are inspired to continue the learning at home with their children. Pamela, along with teaching partner Alicia, has implemented numerous outdoor learning opportunities to get students excited about being outside exploring. Her creative approach to learning is inspiring to parents and fellow staff members. Alicia is a kindergarten teacher as well at Mohawk Gardens Public School. Her innovative approach to learning has engaged students and their family, both in the classroom and at home. Incorporating investigative learning into the classroom has made students excited to explore and actively participate. Over the past few years, she, along with her teaching partner, have implemented numerous community involvement and healthy initiatives for students at Mohawk Gardens to engage children in the community and get them excited about being outside and exploring. Parents are grateful for Alicia's commitment to engaging students and their learning in new creative ways that can be continued at home. Thank you, both of you. Congratulations. I'd like to call Trustee Chowdhury forward, please, and Sarah Fulmer, please. Sarah is a teacher at Tiger Jeet Singh Public School. Her ability to connect with each individual student engages students in their learning and makes them feel special. In her grade 7 history class, she applies project-based learning to enable students to dig deep and explore and learn from the past. This method of teaching has encouraged Sarah's students to fully immerse themselves in their learning. She ignites a passion for learning with her students and encourages and coaches them to develop a strong work ethic, which promotes creativity and confidence. Students, parents, and teachers are grateful for all that Sarah does at Tiger Jeet Singh to promote student well-being. Congratulations. Do you want to sit in this one? And I'll pull this one.
I love my family. Thank you.
Our next award will be presented by Chair Grevence on behalf of Trustee Reynolds, and I'd like to call up Lori McCaffey. Lori is a kindergarten teacher at Glenview Public School, as well as the teacher representative on school council. She continuously strives to make learning fun for her students by coming up with innovative learning lesson plans. Her support of her students inspires them to reach their full potential. She creates a warm, welcoming environment where students feel comfortable and confident. From working to get a tree planted in the kindergarten pen to designing creative art projects to engage students in their learning, Lori demonstrates a unique passion for teaching that inspires students, parents, and staff. Thank you, Lori.
Thank you so much, and congratulations again. We have no delegations or presentations this evening, so we are up to the consent agenda items. Do we have any consent agenda items that require pulling? Oh, Trustee Harvey Hope. Go ahead.
Pursuant to a request a couple of weeks ago, Director Miller is prepared tonight to answer my questions about the order paper. Thank you.
Excellent.
And I also have a question, one really quick question on the admin procedure update.
Why don't you do that one first?
Okay. There is one rescinded procedure, and I was just curious what the definition of co-instructional activities is that was no longer needed.
Through your chair, Grabans, to Trustee Harvey Hope, I will refer to Superintendent Hunt-Timmons.
Thank you, through the chair, to Trustee Harvey Hope. What was the rescinding of that in no way has any commentary or impact on what happens in our schools. It is actually just cleaning up of some old language that's no longer reflected in those sections of the Education Act. And in fact, co-instructional activities or co-curricular activities are very much a part of everything that happens in our schools. And so there's no change or no difference or no commentary on any of that.
Follow-up. So we took out an admin procedure because it's not needed?
It had been outdated and had lived its life and referred to sections of the Act that are no longer there.
Okay, Director Miller, do you want to go forward with the review of the order paper?
Thank you, Chair Drevents. I will go through the order paper motion by motion. And I want to thank Chair Drevents and Vice Chair Al Harrison and Trustee Collard for working with us to prepare for this evening. Motion 0204. I'm not going to read the whole thing. It's around school-generated funds and school council funds. This is going to be covered in the fundraising policy and admin procedure, and I know Superintendent Etoff was speaking with, or will be speaking with, Trustee Collard around the wording, and then it'll come off. I said policy and admin procedure, but it's just admin.
But with all due respect, it was not a governance process of admin. It was a governance process for trustees. So if you're going to stick it the reference to this in the admin procedure?
Yes. 0073 regarding SEAC and the assessment of gifted and entry gifted. As you know, there's been a special education review going on, and this is forming part of it. I have not yet had the conversation. I know there was a meeting this week on a special education review committee, and I will be speaking with Superintendent Zonafel, Associate Director Bogue around where we are with this, and get back to the board next board meeting. 0171 will be shaded as of November 21st. 0172 will be shaded as of November 21st. 0158 on a second entry point for French immersion will be put on the admin council agenda, and there'll be a discussion, and we will bring a recommendation to the Board of Trustees. 0071 okay, then go ahead.
The intent of this was for the HSTS to do a study to look at the high school start times. That has morphed, but they are doing a study of each area, which I believe is in progress starting this upcoming year. They're going to be looking at it by region, so it really can't come off the boards because until they've actually looked at each area to see if this can be shifted, it's still viable even though it's changed.
Okay. 0045, the Nelson User Group. We have had no interest from them, and we have not had any conversations with that group for some time, and they have expressed no interest. So we believe it should be rescinded, but we will do some further investigation before we bring that recommendation to the board to make sure that we've got it right. Yeah. Yep. 0099. This policy is no longer required, so this should be rescinded. Amy.
Trustee Collard.
Would you prefer that we ask questions at the end or throughout?
I'm fine. I think probably throughout, otherwise it's tough to keep track of it.
I wanted to go back then to M150071. And this was regarding using a third-party consultant, and we aren't doing that. The study parameters have been completed. So I'm wondering if, like, what the HSTS is doing really isn't related to this motion. It came out of this motion, but I don't think this motion is required any longer because the HSTS is already proceeding with doing a smaller kind of workaround to try and change the bell times. I don't think this motion is required anymore because we aren't doing a third-party consultant.
Go ahead, Kelly.
Well, I did say it had changed, but we do need something on the books to keep track of this because I would hate to lose the fact that we are having those areas reviewed and we need that information brought back to us as it happens. So maybe it needs to be changed to a different type of motion. It's not part of it is still about the study of the bell time analysis study. So
I think that there's another process we could do. Isn't that a renew and replace or something?
Through you, Chair Drabantz, Trustee Collard and Amos, I was going to suggest something similar. Superintendent Veerman and myself will speak with General Manager Lacroix of HSTS, see where we are on that, and we will bring something to this board. How's that? That would be adjusted appropriately and accordingly. Is that favorable to trustees? Yeah. Okay.
So I had a question about no longer required. You said the policy that incorporates the concepts regarding internal processes. Yeah, 0099. So why is it no longer needed?
Oh, because we publicize with the community on how they deal with public concerns. It's in our all of our documentation that goes out to parents at the beginning of the year and so on.
So then we would need to rescind this policy because it says, be it resolved
Yeah.
that the creation.
I thought I said that.
You said it was no longer required. You didn't actually say what we were
Okay.
going to do.
Sorry.
Sorry.
Okay, fair point. On? Carry on, trustees. 0132 and 0133 are around design and tender of Oakville Northeast School and the Milton Southwest School. I would suggest that they remain on the paper until the tenders have been determined exactly. Okay. 0021. Review of the existing limitations governance process. This will be shaded as of November 21st, as there is a new policy replacing it. And the same with 0059, shaded November 21st. 0088 remains until the work is completed or until it occurs until September 1st, 2020. 0097 remains as well because the PAR work is carrying on for at least 2 more years. And I would suggest maybe longer than that, actually, because there's always follow-up work after that. 0181 remains. 0184 remains as there's still work being done on that Close the Gap program. 0047 remains as well. 0087 remains. 0103 is shaded November 21st, and it's similar to the ones above in that there's a new policy replacing that. What?
Assuming approval tonight.
Yeah, yes. Assuming approval tonight, as Manager Dortmaker just reminded me. 0104 is shaded November 21st, same reasons. 0117, we need some renew or clarification of that. I will be speaking with Superintendent Zonnefeld about that as the Halton, or not Superintendent Zonnefeld, Superintendent Veerman, as the HDSB intent was not to direct the scope of the audit, but rather to ensure that the scope of the audit protected the privacy of our students, et cetera, and so on. So this needs to be reflective of what the will of the Board of Trustees was. So I will work with Superintendent Veerman to get this right and bring it back to the board.
Through you, Madam Chair, to the Director. Might I suggest that since we have an audit committee meeting on Tuesday, and this came out of the audit committee to ensure that we had some discussion before the special education audit about the scope, if not using the verb direct, that perhaps we could further refine it at audit committee and bring it back to the board. Superintendent Spearman's and Chair Gray's cooperation, but I'm saying is that I think that's where the conversation needs to be had.
Thanks, Trustee Harvey Hope. Just saved me a lot of work. I agree with you. That's a good solution. We'll do it all on Tuesday. 0144 is that stemmed from the EDC issue that we were faced with at the end of June and through July. We have written a letter to the ministry that never went off to the ministry because the ministry announced in mid-October that EDCs are frozen for 5 years, but we are still writing a letter to the ministry, and in that letter we will outline the ramifications for us as a board for having EDCs frozen for 5 years. The letter is in the process of being written, and we're writing it jointly with the Halton Catholic District School Board. And just as an update to trustees, I spoke to General Manager Renzella. He has written the HDSB's part. We have sent it off to HCDSB, and they will be getting it back to us early next week, so the letter will go off to the minister.
Oh, sir.
Yes, through the chair. I just want to check, is that also a letter that would be written by other boards of education?
I don't think so. When the EDC issue arose, the three boards that were impacted the most were us, Halton Catholic, and Toronto Catholic District School Board. We are not working with Toronto Catholic District School Board to write the letter. We're just working with our own counterparts. There is, however, some consultations going around, going to happen on EDCs, and P Code, which I'm a member of, has asked for volunteers to be on that consultation process. I volunteered, but I haven't heard back yet or not. But this will be strictly a letter from HDSB, HCDSB. To be fair, we are in a unique position in this province in that we are the two fastest growing boards. And so this EDC issue has had a greater impact on us than virtually all other boards. There is an impact on the Toronto boards, as you know or may know. TDSB cannot collect EDCs because they have too many surplus properties, and the Toronto Catholic District School Board has challenges in collect them. So this is kind of unique to us in that terms of our growth.
Director Miller, before you go on, I have a question about 0144, and that is that the actual motion here is talking about ways to explore and identify the appropriate process or mechanisms to request that the development community voluntarily remit using the current formula, the EDCs.
Oh, sorry.
So have we moved forward on identifying a process or getting one in place?
Sorry about that. I actually got them mixed up. I'm looking at my notes and not the motion. I was really talking about 0145 when I was talking about the 0144. General Manager Renzella is writing a letter and identifying all the developers that work in Halton, and he will bring that. I will bring that letter to the Board of Trustees for their approval. I believe the letter will come from the chair of the board, and we have once we've identified all the developers, and we will write directly to the developers.
Thank you. Go ahead. Oh, wait, Trustee Harvey Hope.
We also talked about getting a report from the municipalities about the actual amount received, and then we could do the math on figuring out what the gap was. Is that part of what General Manager Renzella is working on?
Through you, Chair of Events, to Trustee Harvey Hope. I've got a good memory, but I don't remember that part. But we can do it. It's not that we can't. So we'll take note of it, and I'll speak to General Manager Renzella.
And to follow up, it's just that in a letter that says we'd like you to voluntarily remit, it would part of that letter might be, by the way, this is how much we're short in total. It might add to the oomph of the why
that is included in the letter. That's included in the letter. It was the part about working with the region and the municipalities to do that. We've got that information. We don't need to do that. So that's included in the letter, or will be included in the letter. And so you know that the one that will go to the minister also shows a chart will have a chart in it showing land prices in Halton over the years and to what we're collecting. And it'll be pretty stark, the difference. So. 0169, 0170, 0171, 0173, 0174 all remain, as those are all boundary reviews to commence imminently or in the new calendar year. 0188 will be removed next time. 0199 will be shaded after the meeting, which is next Wednesday, November 14th. 0200 will be shaded on November 21st for removal on December 5th. Um, 0088 was a little complicated. We are going to shade that as of November 21st, but trustees are given in board reports, all our board reports, and it's on our website around admin procedures in terms of their review. So that covers all of this when we give the dates of when they're going to be reviewed. If trustees would like, we can certainly, so you don't have to go onto the website, we can just provide you the list of all the admin procedures and their dates for review, and the same with policies.
We can? Sure.
Can we?
It's all on the website. It perhaps,
Go ahead, Trustee Harvey.
perhaps one of the things is that there are times where some are missing because they're in the middle of being. So if even if it could be part of the trustee intranet, I was actually looking for the trustee honorarium or no, trustee expense policy, and it must be in it, it's our own internal, it's how to find things quickly, in effect, so that if we do get in a situation like I literally could not find the trustee expense policy to point out a number to somebody because it must have been just between when we passed it and when it was going to be there, and it actually wasn't, the old one wasn't there and the new one wasn't there. So if there was a list, then at least you'd have an idea of that, yes, you should be going to find a version. Not saying that it should have the links, I'm just saying the names so that you know that if there is one missing, that there is one somewhere.
Zero 0112, we're going to shade this and remove it, and we are going to include it as part of Associate Directors Bogue and Superintendent Salmini's report to the board on core French and French immersion as part of that. So it won't be. 0190 will be removed for November 21st. That's it for the order paper. I again want to thank Trustee Collard, Chair Drabantz, and Vice Chair Al Harrison, and Trustee Harvey Hope for bringing this to our attention to try to clean it up in anticipation of a new board starting December 1st. Thank you.
Okay, I'm going to put the motion on the floor to actually approve the consent agenda items. So,
Amy started.
Oh, sorry, Amy, I didn't see you. Trustee Collard.
Since there is one item that the director believes should be rescinded, and I agree, which is M160099, and it was a motion that was brought by me, I would like to make a motion that this item be rescinded.
You'd like to do that right now?
Yes.
Okay, anybody second that? Trustee Harvey Hope. Yeah, I'm just, what number was that again?
M160099, be it resolved that the Halton District School Board refer to the Policy, Bylaw, and Governance Committee the creation of a policy that incorporates the concepts regarding internal processes and public concerns identified in the administrative procedure.
Okay, and so you've made that motion, and Trustee Harvey Hope is seconding it or not?
And I thought, but that's fine. That's okay. Sure.
She's happy with seconding that motion. Okay. Is there any discussion at all on rescinding this motion? Okay, so, um, so, you make magic there, Manager Courtmaker. Okay, so, I just have to find it. I don't think so. Oh. Mm-mm. Mm-mm. Okay, it's been found, it's been located, and we can now vote on it. And that passes unanimously. Thank you very much. While we're here, does anybody else want to rescind anything? Okay, just wondered. Okay, so now we are back to approval of the consent agenda items. So be it resolved that the Halton District School Board approve the consent agenda action items and receive the information items for November 7th, 2018, moved by Trustee Amos, seconded by Vice Chair Pappen. Okay, is there any discussion at all on that? Seeing none. And all those in favor. Okay, and that passes unanimously. Thank you very much.
Couldn't do it.
Okay, so Vice Chair Pappen, do we have any business from private session that requires approval?
Yes, we have one item. And it is, be it resolved that the Halton District School Board approve the resolutions from the Halton District School Board meeting in private session on November 7th, respecting legal matters. And I so move.
Do we have a seconder? Trustee Amos? Is there any discussion? Seeing none? All those in favor? All those in favor? Only those that voted on the item probably should vote. Okay. Is that everybody? Everybody's voted that was there? Oh, it's because the list is scrolling. Okay, and that passes unanimously for those that were voting. Thank you very much. Okay, so we are moving on. Oh. Yes, Trustee Harvey Hope.
I believe we had this discussion about the bylaws and how that you have to vote unless you have declared a conflict of interest or are out of the room, were the only two occasions where you couldn't vote. And because conflicts of interest were probably done before we got to this point, and yet we hadn't had private session yet, so I'm thinking we have a missed conflict of interest declaration, perhaps. One cannot vote on something that one was not part of the discussion nor voted on later. You can't ratify. What I'm saying is that our bylaws don't allow them not to, so we have to find a way to allow them not to. But they left the room then.
All the trustees that were not in the room at the time, please leave.
Yeah, it's fine.
Okay, so. Okay, all those in favor. That passes unanimously. Thank you very much. Can we please have the trustees return to the room? Okay, so now we're up to action items for the evening. Number 421, policy feedback, operational leadership fundraising. Report 18142 on page 14 of your board package. Director Miller.
Uh, 14. Thank you, Chair Devens. There were two policies that went out as per our policy, posted on the website for 25 days to gather public input on bylaw and governance and board director relationship policies, et cetera, and so on. You all have it before you. Neither of these draft policies garnered any responses or comments. Thank you.
Okay, I'm going to put the recommendations on the floor. Be it resolved that the Halton District School Board rescind the board's current executive limitations policies and board director relationship policies, and that the Halton District School Board approve the operational leadership policy as appended to report 18142 as the replacement policy on these matters. And be it resolved that the Halton District School Board approve the fundraising policy as appended to Report 18142. Moved by Trustee Collard, seconded by Trustee Oliver. Is there any discussion at all? Seeing none. All those in favor? And that passes unanimously. Thank you very much. Okay, we're now up to communications to the board. First off is item 5.1, student trustee reports. Trustee Clark and Trustee Meng. We are looking forward to your... We did them together. We're looking forward to your report this evening. Go right ahead.
Thank you very much, Chair Gerbentz. Thank you, trustees, for coming out tonight. We are first going to start off by just mentioning that we did send our report to all trustees before the meeting, so they had a chance to look at it. So I'm first going to start off by talking about our Student Senate meeting. Our last Student Senate meeting, our second meeting of the year, was on October 23rd. It was split into 3 different sections: the elementary session, the joint session, and the secondary session. And I'd like to give a special shout out to Superintendent Puccetti, who gave a great presentation to the Student Senate. They very much enjoyed it. I just want to say thank you on behalf of the Student Senate. And also there were 5 motions that passed, mostly procedural, but they were also included. They are included in the agenda that we also sent out to trustees, the minutes sent out to trustees. The committee working groups are making progress on some of the newer stuff that they are embarking upon. So the Student Senate Constitution Committee, the Drug Policy Working Committee, they're all beginning to work. The HYLS committee has also assembled and will be focusing much heavier during the later part of the year when we have most of the student senators working towards HYLS. So for anyone who doesn't know what HYLS is, it's the Halton Youth Leadership Symposium. It is the event thrown by the Student Senate in the later half of the year, which brings together the youth in Halton, in our public school system, and we get to talk about what it means to be a student leader. Thank you, Trustee Daniele. Student senators have also been slowly added to board-level committees at the request of the committees. And if a board-level committee would like representation from students from the Student Senate, please contact Trustee Meng or I, and we can make sure that a student senator is appointed to that committee. And also, I'm going to quickly touch on our executive committee progress. So our next Student Senate Executive Committee meeting will be held this Saturday, November 10th at Dr. Frank J. Hayden Secondary School. We will have a special presentation by the Youth Nation Alliance, which is a special volunteerism organization that was actually founded by a former Peel student trustee. And they will be speaking at our meeting, trying to coordinate some of our efforts to bring volunteerism opportunities to secondary school students. And executives will provide more reports on their activities to the Student Senate in elementary and secondary sessions. And as always, the student senators will have a chance to question the executives as well as ourselves during the meetings.
All right, so I'll continue with the latter half of the report. So for the next Student Senate meeting, will be held here on November 27th, and that will be the last meeting in which the committees can meet in person to do any sort of discussion before the December 1st deadline for the student governance policy proposal and the Student Senate Constitution. And at this point, the Student Senate has done all necessary procedural motions, and now it is up to the Senate and the senators to input and truly represent what they believe regarding the Student Senate Constitution and the student governance policy. And as I said before, the student governance policy is set for December 1st, and due to the fact that the executive committee would like to begin the consultation with the board of trustees early in the new year. And we have been planning with staff advisors to bring the policy proposal to the secondary school principals sometime in the new year for their feedback. And that is all. Any questions?
I don't see anyone on the speakers list, but I want to thank you for that excellent report, and I really appreciate you sending out the written report beforehand so that I see a lot of nods around the table as well, that everybody appreciate the opportunity to read it at our leisure as well, because sometimes it's easier to take everything in when it's not just verbal, right? So learning styles and all that. So thank you very much. Okay, so we're up to action items next for November 21st, 2018. 522 School Renewal, Report 18149 on page 23 of your board package. Superintendent Pacetti, the chair is all yours.
Thank you to Chair Gribbins and Vice Chair Pappen. Thank you. So, trustees, what you have before you is the school renewal program, which comes every year to the board. As a sort of motherhood statement, I would say it is to the benefit of the board to maintain and repair its buildings, to ensure the value of the board's capital assets, and to provide a safe and healthy teaching environment for students and staff, as well as for the community in their use of our schools. So the school renewal program is comprised of 3 funding grants. There's the school renewal grant, the school renewal allocation grant, and the school condition improvement grant. Just to give you a little background, the school renewal grant is based on enrollment, not square footage. The school renewal allocation is based on a per pupil benchmark formula, and it's to undertake school repairs and maintenance considered under operating, not capital. School condition improvement, also known as SCI, is allocated in proportion to a school board's total assessed renewal needs under the ministry's facility condition assessment program, and I can speak to that a little bit later. So all 3 funding sources can only be used for operating schools. Closed schools that are used for admin purposes are not eligible under school renewal. In 2015, under Memo B13, proceeds of disposition, or POD, are directed only to be used for renewal needs, unless there's a specific approval from the ministry to use them otherwise. Both SRG and SCI, we love acronyms here at school boards, can be rolled over from year to year. And just to remind everyone that many school renewal projects require 2 years to complete due to the complexity and the scale of the work and the fact that in many cases we cannot do the work while the school is occupied. So how do we prioritize projects? Schools are inspected. Every school is inspected. The inspection schedule is a 5-year phased inspection schedule, and it's undertaken by a ministry-appointed team of assessors. And that information is entered into the ministry's facility condition database called VFA, formerly known as RECAP. The school renewal projects that you see listed in Appendix B take into account components or building systems that are at the end of their life cycle or in poor condition, and that information is provided both by our own staff as well as through the ministry inspections. The projects in Appendix B also take into account requests from school principals and from facility staff for their family of schools. And prioritization is based on an evaluation matrix, with the highest points given to critical building upgrades. All project submissions are reviewed and evaluated by a team comprised of facility staff, business staff, as well as principal representatives. There are allocations in the school renewal budget for what we call local needs or program needs. So, for example, there's funding allocated for family of schools, program-related upgrades, full-day kindergarten interior retrofits, full-day kindergarten site renewals, accessibility, as well as special education retrofits, tree renewal. Trees are assets as well as buildings. A mature tree has an asset value of about $30,000, so we do want to maintain our trees. And school operations renewal. And if you look at Appendix A, you'll see that those allocations are broken down under the school renewal grant. Facility condition. So you will hear people talk about, well, the FCI, what is the facility condition index? So the board has 102 buildings, schools approximately, and the average age of those buildings is 40 years. We have a deferred maintenance backlog of approximately $238 million. The total amount of renewal funding available for this year, if I include SRG plus SCI and SRA, is $28 million. Based on the ministry assessment criteria, the average facility condition index for the Halton District School Board portfolio is 10%, which is considered fair condition by the Ministry of Education. Anything between 10 and 30 is considered poor. Anything over 30 is considered critical. However, as buildings continue to age and if funding remains at this level, the facility condition index will continue to increase exponentially. Appendix B provides a list of the recommended projects for 2018-2019. So to let you know that Appendix B includes 69 schools for a total of 150 projects. The list at this point does not include family of schools or program-related projects, nor projects that are funded from various allocations such as accessibility and special education retrofits. Those projects tend to come to us a little bit later on and fit within the allocation budget that you are going to approve as part of Appendix A. Our board is, I think, quite progressive in that we bundle projects together. So we try to take advantage of putting several different projects at one school together under one general contractor. This saves us money as well as helps to minimize disruption to schools and allows us to sort of concentrate the renewal work in certain areas. And just to say that because we bundle projects, and some of them are quite large, some of these projects will be carried over from year to year. Other considerations, you will also see in Appendix A that we have allocations for Aldershot, Nelson, and M.M. Robinson. These are school renewal projects that are in support of these schools. And again, it's an idea that you benefit from bundling these renewal projects at the same time that you're doing other work, which is funded by the PAR. So our recommendation in this report is that you approve the school renewal program for 2018-2019 with a list of projects that are detailed in Appendix B. And in doing so, you also will be approving the intent and purpose of the Executive Limitation Policy J, Accommodation Capital Planning, Item 5, regarding tender awards in excess of $500,000 for renovation and repair projects. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Superintendent Pacetti. We have a speakers list. We're going to start with Vice Chair Pappen.
Thank you, through the chair, to Superintendent Pacetti. I know the Nelson community has had a lot of concern about the construction at Nelson High School. So I was wondering if you could just speak to the construction that's going on now and the completion dates that are set right now.
Certainly. So we are currently in the site plan approval process for the work at Nelson's. It includes a addition as well as interior renovation, so that's well underway. What you see here on the school renewal list are projects that would support and facilitate the PAR, but they're also to update and upgrade the building since we're in there touching various areas of the building. So once we get the site plan approval, we will submit for building permit And the intent would be to be able to do some construction starting at the end of the school year. But as you know, there's quite a bit of work there, so it will progress over 2019 and 2020 to finish for the fall of 2020.
Thank you.
Trustee Collard.
Thank you. As you may be aware, there is a significant public interest in the renovations that are occurring due to the program and accommodation review. And I know that we do get reporting periodically from Superintendent Blackwell. But I was wondering if we could just get a review of the PAR renovations and from you. I don't know if you wanted to do that this evening, but I know that there is significant interest in it, and I would like to know if we could get some kind of update from you periodically.
Certainly, through you, Vice Chair Pappen, to Trustee Collard, we can certainly provide that. I don't think I can do that this evening, in part because one doesn't like to say anything until we've gone through site plan approval. Sometimes the city requires us to do other things that we hadn't anticipated doing and so on. So I prefer to wait until that's done, but then we can probably provide some updates.
Trustee Gray.
Thank you very much, through the chair. Earlier this year, we have been talking about the lead levels in water, and I know that we talked about some of the remediation that can occur as the replacement of fixtures and so on and so forth. Are those types of things, would they be found in a report like this, or are they part of another funding element?
Through you, Vice Chair Pappen, to Trustee Gray. There are some washroom and plumbing upgrades listed in this program, and there will also be some smaller projects that would not be listed in this program because they're done at the local level. So they could include replacing drinking fountains or sinks. And I'm trying to think how we can update. Typically, we update the principles for that through that, but we may be able to provide a more fulsome list a little bit later on. Those are projects that usually come to us from our field supervisors, and they trickle in over a little bit over time. So perhaps I can provide an update closer to the spring.
That would be appreciated. And if there's any way that we as trustees can track that in our family of schools, I know that there's significant interest in several of the schools in Halton Hills on this. Thank you.
Trustee Oliver.
Thank you. Through your chair to Superintendent Puccetti, and actually Superintendents Ruddock and Pennyfather might be able to chime in as well. So I understand that jobs like painting and classroom millwork are permitted as minor repairs and replacements under school renewal grant. I'm curious who would bring those sorts of jobs to the attention of facilities? And specifically, I'm wondering about Pilgrim Wood. I know there was some need for painting of the hallways in inside the school itself, but also maybe some exterior work. And Heritage Glen is another one where they have those two kind of like iron pillars that need periodic painting. Otherwise, the paint is chipping and looks quite ratty. So I'm wondering who brings that to the attention of facilities and where that would fit. I don't see it on the list. I'm happy to support the list as is, but I'm just curious. And this was brought to me, to my attention by constituents actually, who were quite concerned about the look of our schools, both external and internal.
Thank you. So there are two ways that those kinds of projects can come forward. We do have a capital renewal request database that principals have access to, and they can submit projects, and those projects are reviewed as along with all the other renewal requests. The other way that principals can bring forward a project is through their superintendent, because there is a certain amount of money also set aside for smaller projects under family of schools. One thing we did a little differently this year under school renewal grant, you will see that in Appendix A that there is an allocation which we call the school operating. I just want to double check that I'm calling it the correct thing. School operations renewal. And we've set aside I just want to make sure I've got the right, $450,000. And the idea with that is that each field supervisor who has a family of schools can also help with some of these smaller repairs or updates to a building, such as painting, for example, through that little pot of money. So those projects aren't listed in here at this point.
Trustee Harvey Hope.
Thank you, through you, Madam Chair. I have one or two questions here. First one is on that Appendix A with the big chart, there is a realignment from locally identified to critical of 3.6 million, which is not a small number based on the 12 million of critical needed. So I gather from my interpretation that means that we have enough critical issues that need to be done based on FCI, those kinds of things, that we are actually reallocating somewhat discretionary renewal projects in order to do the critical things that we need to do. Is that the right interpretation of that?
Not quite. The way the ministry sees renewal funding is that there are sort of two categories. Funding that projects that extend the life of the asset and can be capitalized, and they call those the critical projects, as well as smaller projects under $10,000. They do extend the life of the project, but they may not necessarily be capitalizable, if that's a verb. I'm not sure. So the funding source, the way that works, is 70% goes towards those capitalized items, and 30% of school condition improvement grant can go towards those slightly smaller projects, just as critical, but they're not capitalizable. So for example, it would not be a full boiler replacement. It might be the pump that supports that boiler.
Okay, I follow what you're saying, but I'm not exactly sure how we're allowed to move from one column to another, because the only way this works is to move when you've got $12.6 million worth of projects, is you're taking from the other column. And if the ministry's saying these things are in this column and these things are in that column, how are you able to do that budget adjustment?
You are able to transfer some funds from the non-critical to the critical, but you cannot exceed the 30% on the non-critical. So you must always stay within that 30%.
So you can do 80-20, but you can't do 60-40. Okay, that was my first question. I'll go on the list for the other one.
Okay, Trustee Amos.
Thank you. And I'd like to thank you, Superintendent Pichetti, for your report. And thank you very much as well for the explanation about how the priorities are determined, because we all on a regular basis get calls from constituents with concerns about their schools and the school condition, and seeing that our schools are 0 to over 100 years of age and the average age is 40, that's fairly significant. What really concerns me is the fact that we have $238 million of outstanding repairs that need doing that we can't accomplish, and that rises exponentially in my opinion. So I'd really thank you for doing the prioritization that for the schools that are most critical, and I really would love to be able to find out how we, and that includes all schools in the province, could address some of our capital renewal concerns, because if we don't keep our schools up to snuff, they get worse faster than they would if they were kept on a renewed basis all the time. So I just like to say thank you for your explanations, and I'm not sure how we as trustees can do anything to affect change regarding the capital renewal costs, but I do think at some point we need to bring it with the rest of our, maybe through OPSPA, the concerns around our capital renewal concerns for the province. Thank you.
Trustee Harvey Hope.
Thank you. I sort of have the same theme. So we have some schools that are new and some schools that are much older. And so when we spend 10 million, 25 million, 32 million on a new high school, new elementary, one of the things we often talk about is, okay, there's your capital money, has a life expectancy of, I seem to recall James W. Hill was like 25 years for the boiler or whatever. Also, new technology, new, more sophisticated things sometimes don't last quite as long as the old stuff. And what this backlog is telling me as an accountant is that we're not keeping up, we can't keep up, and we don't have a sinking fund for, okay, we're putting aside money to replace these things when they do go down. So it is going to be a critical problem because none of our new schools have any items on this list. And yet 10 years from now, they're going to need items on this list, but the things, those other schools, those are going to be more critical if they're not done. So it's just it's going to get bigger much faster. And there doesn't seem to be a plan when the government went to capitalizing assets to be able to actually capture, okay, we've got all these assets now versus just spending the money and it just disappearing. Not disappearing, but disappearing off the books, right? It would just show through the income statement and not be capitalized. They haven't gone the next step, which is to say, for everything that you buy that is a capital asset, it will need to be replaced or updated or renewed or fixed at some point. And they don't have a plan for that, except to let assets deteriorate to the point where they say, okay, fine, now you have a FCI of 85. Now we're going to give you another 10 million to build a new building, rather than having given us the incremental money as we went along to maintain the buildings so we wouldn't have to build a brand new one.
Through you, the chair, Trustee Hope, I think you raise a very good point. I will say this about the ministry. It's not often I come to the defense of the ministry, but I will do that. The ministry is one of the few departments, portfolios, that has as much knowledge about its buildings that it oversees than any other department that is under the province. The Ministry of Education has been undertaking building inspections, consistent building inspections of all schools in Ontario. We are now in the third of our 5-year inspection cycle, and they maintain a database, which is now called VFA, which follows industry standards in terms of life cycle expectations for components and systems. So in terms of having data, they are well aware of what the challenges are. And in fact, as ministry staff explained to me, they have been able to receive more money from the Treasury to go towards building renewal and repairs because they've had this database. And all school boards are required to update that database. Every project we do goes back into that database, and it actually has to balance with our financials. But you're right, it is not enough money, and I did reference the 2015 Auditor General's report, which looked at infrastructure and particularly schools in Ontario, and pointed out that for many years the province was underfunding renewal, then spiked up renewal under Good Places to Learn, where we were all running around like crazy trying to spend the money. But at the same time, they were not giving us enough money to replace the aging facilities. So they were called out in that report because of that. So I would say that the province, the Ministry of Education is well aware that there's a critical need out there. And it's just simply a matter of how they can get more funding to do that.
Okay, there's no one else on the speakers list. That was quite a run. So we will have that report back in 2 weeks, but don't go anywhere because you are first on our list for information items this evening. Number 531, options for solar installations, report 18150 on page 32 of the board package. And welcome back.
Yeah, yellow person. Yeah. Thank you, Chair Gibbons, and I won't be quite as long-winded. So I did prepare a few speaking notes. This is an information report. This report provides a high-level summary of some of the existing energy management measures that are in place at Halton District School Board for both existing and new schools, and the compelling benefits, both financial and organizational, for the board to undertake a phased net metered solar installation program. So just to say, net metered is where the electricity produced by the solar panels on the building feed back into the building and offset the electricity use of the building. And on average, on a big high school, for example, a large solar array could probably offset about 20% of the building's electricity use in combination with some other energy saving features. So the benefits of embarking on a phased solar program include, of course, reducing future energy cost increases, as well as demonstrating the board's commitment to the environment and sustainability. In addition, the data from the net metered solar installations would be made accessible to students as a learning resource. Imagine how cool it would be for students to see how much electricity the solar array system on their school's roof produced that day. And we could tie it in with all sorts of things, you know. The solar system produced enough energy to run all the computers in your computer lab, plus all the lights in the gym, and make it a real sort of dynamic learning tool. The question is, how do we fund solar, given that there are currently no incentive programs available, and changes to the net metering regulation have eliminated external partnerships at this point? This report provides a funding source proposal for solar, and that is, we anticipate generating savings through the ongoing work that we undertake in our buildings, such as replacing our aging building control systems, temperature set points, conversions to LED lighting, replacing older mechanical equipment with newer mechanical equipment. And we anticipate that with those energy savings, we could fund a few solar projects every year. And as we do more, we might generate more energy savings. The advantage with this proposed phased approach is it's relatively low risk. The board would not be committing to anything other than once a year we would review the energy savings, and from that propose what we would be able to undertake the next year in terms of solar installations. It's a self-directed initiative. It means we don't owe anybody anything, and we're benefiting the most from our solar installations. And if there is a future funding incentive or opportunities, we could easily move into taking advantage of those. So that is the intent of this report, is to provide you with a bit of an update and an idea of where we'd like to go with this.
And we do have a speakers list. Trustee Collard.
Thank you. I am so excited by this report. I have to tell you, I have John William Boych as one of the schools in my area. And when that school opened 7 years ago, we were supposed to have the access to the solar panels that were on the roof that were going to be tied into the system. And 7 years later, those solar panels are still sitting idle and not producing any energy at all because the capacity for the system at the time couldn't handle. And so I see in this report that we're expecting to go online next year, and I'm excited because I thought it was never going to happen. So thank you very much. And I'm also extremely pleased to see the work that's going forward in getting more solar panels in our schools. Anything that we can do to become more self-sufficient with our energy will be a good thing. Thank you.
Trustee Amos.
I, too, are very excited about this report because airport bridges have been sitting there for over 12 years with doing nothing. Well, not effectively. Well, they have been? Oh, okay, I didn't think they were actually being effective because they weren't saving us any money, though. Go ahead.
The panels at Iroquois Ridge, similar to the ones that are MMR, are part of a FIT program. So they are small systems. They're only 10. They're about 10 kilowatts. So they don't produce that much energy, but they do feed into the grid, and we do get a check. And I have to double check if it's an actual check or whether they credit our account for those systems.
Well, I'm really happy to be corrected because I had heard at one point they were there not doing anything and they weren't helping us in any way, even if they were feeding into the grid. So that's great news. And I am totally supportive of this project and hope that we can maybe even partner with some private and people who may believe that greening is a good thing for our school board and might help us move faster than this. But I think it's a great initiative. Thank you for bringing it forward.
Excellent. Thank you very much for bringing this report forward. Yeah, I was surprised that Robinson has solar panels too. So that's great. Yeah, thank you very much. Okay, moving on to 532, Promoting Public Confidence Committee, Report 18144 on page 34 of the board package. Welcome, Associate Director Bogue.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Through you to trustees, this is the work of the Public Confidence Committee. I just want to make a few comments. I think the report is fairly self-explanatory. I did want to thank some trustees, Trustee Daniele and Collard and Amos for their contributions on the committee, as well as Superintendents Hunt Gibbons, Newton, and Etoff. I want trustees to know that we know from our Have Your Say data that our community and our parents have a high level of public confidence in the Halton District School Board. That is a fact, and we rate very highly with our public. But we also know that this is a big, important piece from the Ministry of Education, and it's important for us to make sure that we keep this on our radar. And so the director tasked our group to study this issue and come back with some recommendations to trustees. And what you see before you is some interim work. Our hope is that we would continue this work over the next couple of months and get something back in the way of a final report to trustees, probably in late December. So I'm happy to answer any questions that trustees might have at this point.
Trustee Clark.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you very much for your brief summary of your report. I see a mention of the Student Senate in here, and I do remember, I think it was last year when you came and spoke to the Student Senate. Can you just elaborate on some of the issues that student senators identified as ways that we can increase public confidence at this point in time?
Thank you for that question. The Senate, the information that we got from the Senate was primarily around the question of when they start to do their planning. I think some of the comments that they made were themes that we had heard prior to that around maybe why they make their decision. But really, when we gathered input from the Senate, it was around when you do the planning, because part of the conversation at the committee level is if we want to connect kids in an elementary school setting to their intended high school, at what age do we want to go after that? So is it in grade 8 when we're really talking about the transition, or is it much sooner than that? And so we learned from the Senate that the thinking about high school actually starts quite a bit earlier. And grade 6, grade 7 tended to be the age when they were starting to make plans around where they would attend high school.
Thank you very much.
Trustee Oliver.
Thank you. Through you, Chair, to Associate Director Bogue. I'd like to confirm for you that, in fact, Halton residents do hold HDSB in a very high esteem. And I've certainly learned that through my very recent municipal elections experience, going door to door in my ward in Oakville. Vast majority of the residents I came across and those who had younger kids, kids of all ages, including adult kids who had moved away from homes and long gone students. All the residents expressed gratitude to HDSB for the wonderful, academics and school experience for their children, and spoke very highly. There were a few that had personal issues and matters they wanted to discuss, but by and large, very positive feedback. So I was very pleased to be, to be a representative for HDSB at that time. Thank you.
Trustee Gray.
Yes, thank you. Through the chair, I too would echo the same experiences as Trustee Oliver through this recent campaign time. I do believe, as you have reported, Associate Director Bogue, that there is a very, very high regard for the work of the HDSB. I had a question from this report. Many of the suggestions lead to a cost of some kind, a financial commitment. And at what point will we try to bundle that commitment financially together and make a pitch for funding release so that we can see some of these great ideas put into play?
Thanks for that, Trustee Gray. Through you to trustees, that will come in the final report. We recognize that some of the strategies will have some budgetary pieces to them. I'm kind of envisioning that the committee, and we've talked a little bit about this, that there'll likely be some system suggestions, well, things we could do as a board, and there'll be some school suggestions. And in both cases, there's likely to be some budget implications. So we're going to try to look at that as best we can, and we'll put those in front of trustees. The reason we wanted to get it back to the board late December is so that it's here prior to us getting to in depth into the budget conversations. Yeah, thank you for that.
Thank you, Associate Director Bogue. There are no more speakers on the speakers list. And I really appreciate the report. It's important to us all that we have confidence in our education system, and specifically our board. So next on the list is number 533, financial statements, report 18145 on page 38 of the board package. Welcome, Superintendent Veerman.
Thank you. Through the chair, the report's included in the agenda tonight just to give the trustees a summary of timelines with respect to implementation or approval of the financial statements because of the end of term and the fact that the current trustees have to approve the financial statements. We wanted to ensure that there was ample opportunity for review and for discussion or consultation if required. So there is an audit committee meeting, a public audit committee meeting to be held next Tuesday on the 13th. And after that, the financial statements will be presented to the board on the 21st with final approval scheduled for the 28th.
Okay, so there are no speakers on the speakers list at all. I guess we all get it. Thank you very much. Okay, next is number 54, notices of motion. Are there any notices of motion? Trustee Collard.
Yes, last night at SEAC, they brought forward a report of support for the inclusion of student voice at the SEAC table. And what they brought forward was a proposed procedural document of how we would include students at the SEAC level. And so I will be bringing forward a report, including their proposal, for us to then take and tweak and implement as we see fit in the new board.
Okay, thank you. Are there any other notices of motion? Seeing no other speakers, next is the director's report.
Thank you, Chair Drabantz. I have 4 items this evening. The first one, I'm just going to turn to Superintendent Blackwell to give a very brief synopsis of an event that's happening next week.
Thank you, Director Miller. Through the chair, just a reminder that Tuesday next week at 7 o'clock is the iSTEM open house. We've been promoting it for the last month and a half, and we've had quite a few questions come in, so that's good news. We've had questions, am I able to attend if I haven't been in the public school system before? So as we talk about the public confidence report, that's a good thing. The event is open to the public. It starts at 7 p.m. We'll start with an overview of the program and the application process. Then at 7:30 till about 8 o'clock, there's a panel. And we have a wide range of advisory partners that are working with us from post-secondary and industry. So some of those people will be on the panel. And then at 8 o'clock, it's an open forum for people to address staff and communicate with staff and ask questions specific to their unique needs, and that'll go until about 8:30. So we're really excited and looking forward to it. And if you're unable to attend, it will be posted, video recorded and posted by the end of November. Okay.
Thank you. And then I'll turn to Superintendent Etoff.
Yes, just wanted to inform the board and the public as well that planning for our Human Rights Symposium on Indigenous Realities that's taking place right here in Burlington on December the 4th is going extremely well. We truly have a star-studded lineup. And we still have a few tickets left, but they are going quickly. It's definitely going to be a sold out venue for the day. Our recent promotion was just released prior to the board meeting. You'll see it out on Twitter, where we have a very brief clip of Jesse Wente and Susan Aglukark letting the public know what they can expect from the learning that day. So. In order to inform the board, as well as the public, we're going to be doing a presentation at the next board meeting on November the 21st, just to let you know how our planning is going and what folks can expect from the day.
Thank you. Next Wednesday, November 14th, Committee of the Whole. We've been trying to improve this over the years of trying not to put major events, board events on the same evening as either board meetings or Committee of the Whole meetings. But there has been a bit of a slip up for this year, and Creating a Scene is next Wednesday. Creating a Scene is an event in which it brings many of our schools all around Halton to come, and students will perform short vignettes or perform dances, singing, etc. I always attend, and I know many of the trustees always attend. It's unfortunate it's on the Committee of the Whole evening. I may ask permission of the trustees to skip down there for about 20 minutes, 25 minutes, just to see what's going on, but I'm mostly saying this so the public can go and see it. It's at the Burlington Arts Center, right? Performing Arts Center, yeah. Sorry? Oh, no, that was a Music Fest. Creating a Scene's been at the Burlington Performing Arts Center for about 4 or 5 years, I think. Yeah, so. The last thing I'd like to mention is I would encourage trustees, if they have the opportunity, Sunday is the 100th anniversary of the end of the First World War. And as we all know, it was the war, supposedly, to end all wars. That didn't turn out quite so right. There's been wars ever since that war, and they continue unabated in various parts of the world. I had the pleasure, along with Chair Grabentz and some other trustees who joined us there, to Trustee Oliver, Trustee Amos, and Trustee Vice Chair Al Harrison, to go to Aldershot Woodland Cemetery, where there's 800 former Canadian military service men and women buried there. And the event had the military there, and it was a very solemn and appropriate event. And our students from Aldershot, grades 8 and grade 10, did us all very proud. They stood for about an hour without moving behind the headstones of some of these service people. And then at the end of it, they put poppies on all of the headstones. We were also fortunate enough to have the Rangers there. It's a Canadian regiment of entirely Indigenous members, and their job is to protect the Arctic in Canada. So it was a tremendous event. But I would urge all trustees to try to go to a school this Sunday. I'm sure, or Friday, in commemoration of Remembrance Day on Sunday, because this is a significant, they're always significant, but this one's particularly significant because it was this war and that time that started off Armistice Day, which of course has now become Remembrance Day. So we will be having a ceremony here at the board, and you're welcome to come here as well if you would like to come to that. And that's my report. Thank you.
Thank you, Director Miller. Are there any questions for the director at all? Seeing none. Next is communications from the chair. I don't have any communications from the chair other than a reminder that we will be going back into private session after public session. And now we're on to committee reports. Please note that there is a committee report included in your board package that you can read at your leisure. And are there any other committee reports? Trustee Oliver.
Thank you, Chair. Yesterday, the Special Education Review Committee met once again, and Elena, the consultant that was hired to conduct the review, has been doing extensive literature review of learning disabilities and gifted exceptionalities, with a particular emphasis on screening and identification of students with such exceptionalities. We're looking at the appropriate age, the reliability, validity, and stability of the screening and identification assessments that are being used. And so staff are looking at this review and taking that knowledge back to their special education department and their fellow colleagues to look at the HDSB practices and see how closely our practices are aligned with what the research tells us. And so we're getting a good sense of some of the best practices in this area. And we do need to assess how we're doing this and whether and if anything could and should be changed. So that work is ongoing. Thank you.
Thank you, Trustee Gray.
Through the chair, just wanted to mention that earlier today there was a brief meeting of the Fair Funding Committee, and that more information will flow through hopefully at one of the next Committee of the Whole meetings for all trustees. I think that traction is being noted, and we're pretty excited about the next steps. And also, as mentioned earlier this evening, everyone's welcome, of course, to attend beginning at 2 p.m. next Tuesday, the Audit Committee meeting. Thank you.
Trustee Amos.
So I thought that Trustee Gray might talk about the amazing evening last week about the Halton Learning Foundation fundraiser. Okay, well, it's one of the committees. Then I'll leave it there.
Trustee Vice Chair Pappen.
Thank you. SEAC met last night for the last meeting of our term. We reviewed some of the policies we've looked at over the year and made some recommendations on what should be done moving forward. Thank you.
Okay, and seeing no one else on the speakers list, I'll speak to the Equity and Inclusive Education Committee meeting that happened on November the 1st. It was quite an interesting meeting. Many of our community partners, of course, were in attendance, and it became apparent when Community Development Halton spoke that we need more information from them, and so they will be providing us with a much larger presentation in the future. And I understand that we may also be getting presentations from the Halton Multicultural Council and perhaps Halton Interfaith as well. So thank you. Okay, so committee reports are complete. Any trustee questions and comments? Trustee Clark.
Thank you very much, Madam Chair. Director Miller stole what I was going to say tonight. I have been asked to MC the Creating a Scene event on November 14th, so I just wanted to mention that to the board. If you want to see me speak and see some fantastic students perform their art, I encourage everyone to come on out.
Trustee Gray.
Thank you very much. And now for a little bit of news from the Halton Learning Foundation. As of last year at this time, the Halton Learning Foundation had supported 190 students, and that was as of this time last year. As of November 7th, instead of 190 that were supported last year, we are up to 628. That's a 230% increase in the number of students that the Halton Learning Foundation is supporting in the Halton District School Board. I don't have the amount of money that dollar figure would represent for those 600, for the 190 students this time last year, but as of right now, the 628 students have been supported to the tune of $61,000 and $61,647. So I think everyone can join with me in recognizing that there is a very increased need being exhibited in the Halton region for support of students. And so this then leads me directly to last Thursday evening with a great big thank you for everyone who was able to attend and support the Halton Learning Benefit Bash. As the need grows, so does the need to raise the funds to support that. And I'm very, very pleased to report, though the final tally of support on that evening has not yet been determined, everyone is very, very grateful for all of the people that were present and the funds that were raised. A great announcement on that evening, and possibly you've seen it through Twitter, was that the American Iron and Metal had donated $250,000 gift to the Halton Learning Foundation, and that's going to go a long way given the 230% increase in draw that we have at this time. Finally, from the Halton Learning Foundation, all schools will shortly be receiving an opportunity to apply for a grant from the Halton Learning Foundation to support areas like arts, music, technology, the environment, mental health, thanks to RBC, and physical education. The HLF's annual holiday appeal, No Student Left Behind, will launch on Cyber Monday, November 26. With the increase in student need, the HLF is hopeful that this initiative will be very successful and that we can continue to say yes to all of the requests that arrive in from the principals around the Halton District School Board. So again, to everyone, thank you so much for supporting our charity, the Halton Learning Foundation.
Thank you, Trustee Gray. Trustee Chowdhury.
Through the chair, Connor, don't feel so bad because the director also stole some of my comments from tonight. I want to, you're on a roll. I want to echo and I'm surprised you could read them. I want to echo and show my appreciation for your comments regarding Veterans and Remembrance Day. As a Canadian veteran, I'll be speaking at a school in Milton. I've also worked with other schools in Milton to have veterans from our Canadian Legion come out. So I encourage trustees that if you would like a veteran to come to any of your schools, you can either work with me or work with your Royal Canadian Legion, who have a plethora of veterans who would love to just come and stand at a ceremony and be involved with something on Remembrance Day or the Friday preceding that. That's all I had, so thank you.
Director Miller.
Through you, Chair Dubens, to Trustee Chowdhury. First of all, thanks for your service in the Canadian military. But for our ceremony, we will have an active Canadian Forces member here speaking to all the staff in JWS as well. So,
Trustee Amos.
Thank you. I have two things. First, earlier today we had the Inspire Award presentations. One award is going to be presented at the school later this week. Her name's Sarah Yassini, and it'll be presented to her at White Oak Secondary School. The other thing I wanted to mention is we're in the process of a boundary review for the Northeast Oakville number 2 public school. And it doesn't appear that we have broken ground yet for that area, and parents are getting very concerned. Can we have an update on that, please?
through you, Chair Drabens, to Trustee Amos, and I will look to Superintendent Puccetti after I speak. At this moment, we are speaking with the Ministry of Education around final approval around some funding elements of the school. The ministry has approved the construction of the school, and they have approved a certain amount of the funding, and we are in conversations with them around the rest. We will, as we get that information and complete information, be able to make a definite comment and definite statement to the community around expected completion dates and so on. At this moment, we believe that the date is September 2019, but I would not be, there is some concern in the late time in that we're getting started on that, and we will, but we can't comment very much because we're in the process of talking with the Ministry of Education around those elements of funding. But as soon as that is resolved, we will certainly come out with a definitive statement and or plans if necessary. Superintendent Puccetti, do you have anything to add? No. Thank you.
Trustee Gray.
Thank you very much, through the chair. I just wanted to make mention that the last 2 Thursday nights up in Acton and in Georgetown, there were 2 different evenings to welcome the grade 3s to our schools in the Calling All 3-year-old nights. And apparently there were about 120 new families that attended the events to see what our kindergarten programs are all about. So big thanks to the elementary programming department who hosted these 2 very special nights in Acton and Georgetown. Very much appreciated.
Okay, thank you, Director Miller.
Sorry, I forgot about this. Chair, through you, Chair Drabens, to all trustees. If Saturday rolls around and you've got nothing to do and you love soccer like I do, then get yourself up to Pine Glen in Oakville, and you will see many of our new Canadians who are students in the HDSB playing soccer in various games over up there. Principal Dean Barnes of the Welcome Center has organized a whole day of soccer playing for all our new Canadians, playing, as we call it, the beautiful game, played by beautiful people generally, but. It's all day, but I don't know specifics. But we'll get the specific times for you if you want to pop in and see a lot of our newer students, most of whom are new to the country as well, playing soccer. So Dale, one of us will get a hold of Dean Barnes and get the information as to exactly the times and all that.
That sounds really fun. Okay, so now we have nobody else on the speakers list, and we need a motion to rise into private. Trustee Gray, seconded by Trustee Oliver. And is there any discussion on that at all? Seeing none, so. Oh. All those in favor? That passes unanimously. Thank you very much. We are going into private session.
All